nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. It is Saturday night. Earlier today, Real Madrid drew 1-1 away to Real Betis. And who better to join me to break it down than the guy who is the least reactionary guy ever. So I don't have to go like too much into this vibe of like, oh my God, sky is falling, team is a disaster, blow it up, fire this guy, sell this guy, buy this guy. No, we're going to pump the brakes. I assume. Maybe Matt is coming in here guns blazing, about to rip into everyone. I'm not sure, but I kind of lean towards everything's okay for now. Matt, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, Kiyan, I'm doing well. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not coming in guns blazing. I'm not gonna overreact. I think we're fair in our analysis. Like, there have been times where Carlo has come out after a game, and I think it was this season where he's like, you know what, that was a good performance. I'm happy with it. And we flat out said, no, that's wrong. Like, that wasn't a good performance. Yeah. There were so many things that were wrong. But today he did the same thing. And honestly, I don't disagree with him. I think some of it was like some of the things that I'll maybe nitpick that I felt were strange was that it just felt like the team was tired at the end, which is weird because we had a week's rest. Betis actually played in the midweek in the Copa del Rey.
Yeah.
They have just as many injuries as we do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was surprised by the tiredness. And just kind of the second half was flat overall, I felt like. But aside from that, like, Carlo didn't have that many options off the bench. There's so many guys that are coming in cold, like have been out of the team and out of match rhythm for so long that it's hard to really expect too much from them. And so all in all, I thought we played well and we did enough to win. Maybe a draw is a fair result given the second half, but not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been shy of being critical of Carlo or Real Madrid or Zidane or whoever's in charge or whoever player is here. But I think today the reason I lean towards being more sympathetic with the circumstances is, and I get that Real Betis were missing like 5 players or so. I mean, look, we're missing 9, not to get into a competition, but it is one of the toughest places to play in Spain. And Real Betis have this season, if you kind of look at their track record, they've been very strong. They've been strong at home. They've drawn a lot of games that they probably would have won if they replayed it. They're a really good team at home. Isco played an amazing game. We can get into it later. Aitor Perez killed us. Ruibal with an insane shot. And, how often will something like that happen to you? But the reason I'm more sympathetic, apart from the fact that it's a tough place to play and you're missing half your team, is that, like, when you look around and see what you could have done in this game, like, I'm well aware of, like, what the fans are upset about. They bring up the fact that, we had a 1 week's rest. They bring up the fact that Rodrygo had no striker to play off of today. They bring up the fact that Lucas Vazquez was getting absolutely cooked. So I think if you're just kind of like looking around and trying to figure out who to blame, and I saw some wild takes about like whose fault it was that Ruibal scored that goal, and we can get into that as well. I even saw the people saying like Rodrygo cost us the game by not tracking Ruibal in that sequence. Betis, I thought, defended well. Rodrygo had to break lines over and over again just to create space, and I think he did that brilliantly. And I think that just kind of like final thing was lacking. And like by the end of it, Betis were the better team to me. Like after Jude scored his goal, after that, it genuinely looked like we ran out of gas, Matt. And that's the thing. Like, who are we getting mad at the fatigue right now? Because the reality is you're missing a lot of players. So the remaining players, even if we had 1 week rest, are being played into the ground. Like Ancelotti said before the game that Bellingham is on a specific regimen, like to get him into like match fitness, because he has this whole shoulder thing that's happening. He's not training every day full contact on the training ground with the rest of the group. He did it the last couple of days, but before that he was on his own in the gym doing lighter work and getting into recovery mode. I could see it, man. Like in 75 minutes and on, Bellingham and Fede Valverde, two of our best players this season, possibly 1 and 2, were just gassed. They could not, like, they were tired. Like it was, you could see it. Cruz too. Like, and who are you gonna like? Who is to blame for that? Like we're missing a lot of players, so the remaining players have to be played into the ground, and that's the reality of the situation. Now you can be more critical of, in my opinion, of someone like Lucas Vazquez, who should be fresh and was hopeless defensively tonight. A lot of the attack also stalled with him on that side. You need better from him. And Joselu, like, we know what he is. Like, that's it.
Yeah, and I think in defense of Lucas Vazquez, what I've noticed with him over the last few years is he really needs that continuity to find his form. Like, it usually takes him like 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive matches before he really finds his rhythm again and kind of gets into the flow of things. And I mean, I don't think he's the only one that needs that. I think Danny Ceballos needs that. I think it's the guys that aren't like as athletic, like the athletic just specimens that Tchouaméni, Vinicius, like these guys are, that maybe can recover quicker and kind of find that rhythm quicker. But we even saw it with Vinicius. Like, it took him a month after his last injury to really start getting going again, and then he got injured again. So I always think like it just takes time, especially with the guys that have been out for a really long time. So like Mendy and Ceballos, I'm willing to have a longer leash with them because they've been out for almost 4 months, if not longer. And so those guys, I feel like it's going to take time. Like it almost takes a couple months before they're really back to their normal selves. And I think you're starting to see that actually with Mendy. I wouldn't say he was fantastic today, but I feel like the last few games he's been getting better and better and kind of more reliable.
Well, heading into this game, it was the first time since 2022 he had put 5 consecutive games together. Just think about that. The stop-start with him has been ridiculous. And getting into a rhythm, I mean, that's one thing that I think is really underrated when we're discussing these things and player performances. The first few games back are the hardest because you really got to try to get back into rhythm. Match fitness is a huge thing. That's why I was a little bit like Ceballos' first game, I think, was against Napoli in the Bernabeu. I remember being there. I remember telling you, and I thought he was shockingly bad. But I also said, like, look, it's his first game back. Like, you know, we got to be lenient a little bit with this kind of stuff. The first play, I think one of his first touches today off the bench was a giveaway, which he got bailed out by a foul. After that, he kind of grew into it a little bit. Some of that fight that we know Ceballos for came back, and he just kind of grew into it a little bit. I think there were patches of this game, and I don't know, I think a draw is ultimately a fair result. I will say, like, if you dissect how this game went, the first 30 minutes or so, Betis had a lot of difficulty dealing with Rodrygo, who was cooking Ruibal, who was getting to his spots. I mean, his dribbling is on another level right now. I just want to note that. The bounce he's playing with, the confidence he's playing with, the first touch on those diagonal switches that came to him, he was ready. The first touch, it just landed on his feet like just a cushion. And then his second touch to escape pressure, to evade the challenges past 2-3 players, his link up with Jude Bellingham in the left half space. One thing about Mendy today, and we can talk about his performance, some good, some bad, but one thing that I liked that Mendy was doing, especially in that first half, was that he was making runs in that left half space. And he actually didn't get it like 95% of the time, but it kind of decongested a little bit for Rodrygo and Bellingham That's something that Mendy hasn't been doing much in his Real Madrid career. But when he does it, even though he doesn't get it, he helps a little bit offensively with those runs off the ball. So Betis have problems with that. And I think one of the things that I noted too, the commentators also noted it on my feed. I think we have the same feed. But like some of those balls that were going into the box were to Brahim. And it kind of reminded me of AC Milan Brahim, where sometimes like Milan were really fun to watch. And then sometimes there were these weird things they would do. Like Giroud or Zlatan would be outside the box and Brahim would be like the little like 2-foot guy in the box, like trying to win the header. And so I was like, okay, well, Joselu is better in those situations. But then you also saw some of Brahim's genius at play too. He had the disallowed goal. Second half, the assist was insane. So you kind of saw like some of the give and take of it. But then after about 30 minutes, I thought Real Betis grew into it and started to bring the pressing line a little bit higher. Started to realize that our transition defense today isn't great. Partly because we're tired. Other parts because we still don't have Tchouaméni and Camavinga. And you also saw Modric and Bellingham in more advanced roles today with Fede and Kroos maintaining the double pivot, although Bellingham was flying defensively too. That's another thing. Like people will say, sorry, I'm kind of hogging the mic, but people will say like, how can Jude be tired? Yeah, I had a week rest. I don't know if people understand how much ground this guy covers. He's playing defense in our box and he's playing offense in the opposition's box. So he's covering a lot of ground. So Betis kind of figured out like, okay, we can get in behind their defensive line a little bit more than we are currently. And they threatened. I mean, we had a lot of the ball. We had a lot of the ball in their half as well. The field tilt was 60% in our favor, but they had 1.5 XG. We had 0.8. So that's why I said like a draw is probably a fair result, but I think we were a little bit lucky to dodge those chances at the end. Isco hit the post. One more thing, Matt, before I let you take over. I think the footballing gods are really on our side. Somehow, Sergio Ramos and Isco did not score against us. Sergio Ramos hit the post late. Isco hit the post late. We dodged bullets there, man.
Yeah, those were written in the script, and somehow we dodged those bullets. But
yeah.
Yeah, no, you said a lot there, so I think a lot to unpack, and maybe I'll kind of go one by one on certain things that went through my mind as you were talking. I think maybe Brahim first. I was actually surprised at the position he took up, but it made a little bit more sense, I think, after the fact when I thought about it. So obviously he played more as a right midfielder today rather than kind of one of the two up front.
Yeah.
And I think Carlos starting. I mean, Modric has. This is the second time we've seen him play that role, and I wonder if Carlo doesn't trust or doesn't want Modric to have to do as much of the two-way running, because if you look back, Brahim did a lot of work defensively and a lot of tracking,
and he's good at that.
Yeah, and he is good at that, and like he helped out with Abner and Abdi, and so I think. I was surprised at the position he took up, but it worked out, and I actually like him. Like we've always thought of him as more of a right winger. He played as a number 10 primarily at Milan, but but that's always kind of what we liked about him because he's so two-footed. Like I don't know. I think with Bellingham, you mentioned obviously on the opposite flank, the two-way presence and all the running he does defensively, but also, I just think about them. There's so many times off ball. If you just watch him, he's making so many runs into the box where his teammates don't look at it, or they don't see it, or they just don't make the pass. And he gets frustrated. Like he throws his hands up, and he gets visibly frustrated. But I think to myself, it's crazy the amount of run. Like it is no surprise that he is scoring these goals, and that he is, because for every goal he scores in these games, like there's probably 3 or 4 runs that his teammates don't see that he makes that probably would have created something. He's constantly trying to make those late arriving runs, and today's was brilliant. Like the touch, the finish, the composure, everything. And so just I love it. I keep it going, keep this run going. I mean we did that Managing Madrid round table how many weeks ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, saying like, can Jude Bellingham keep this going? I think most of us said yes, just because he's getting into the right spots, and he's and it is that off-ball movement. We think it will come off because he's clearly outperforming his XG, but for the most part, he is getting into the right spots. So as long as you do that, you'll still create goal-scoring opportunities. So no, go ahead. Go ahead if you can chime in there.
No, I mean, I just on Bellingham, I just keep running out of words for him because it makes no sense what he's doing to me. Like, I look at him, honestly, to me, he's a god because, like, I'm just like this average guy who just sits on my laptop and I watch football, and I can't conceive that these guys are, like, doing all the... I mean, look, you and I had the privilege in Dallas to up close in Real Madrid's training session to be, like, this far away from their scrimmage. Yeah. And I think what blew us away both was, like, how intense and physical it is up close, like when you see those guys play, and it looks like they're just different species to me, like doing incredible things. But when I see Bellingham in particular, it's a whole different level to everyone else. I mean, it boggles my mind that no matter where the ball is, where he is, and where his opponents are, he somehow always controls it. Like even like something that looks very simple to us, when Brahim passes him over the top, he leaps and he controls it with the top of his chest because he can, and just so effortlessly, and he finishes it, controls it, brings it down. There was another play in the second half where Vazquez gives him a hard pass in stride, and he has to kind of reach behind him to get the ball. And it comes down on top of his head. He leaps up and brings it down. There's like 3 Betis players around him, and then he just brings it down on his feet and passes it out. I'm like, how did you do that? It's crazy. So just he was insane today in tight spaces. I mean, you saw the back heel too. In the build-up to Brahim's
he was so much more than the goal. Yeah, he had those dribbling sequences. Like I think of him bursting through. He kind of did like the Iniesta where you go from one foot to the other to get by a guy and then burst it through. Yeah. The reverse passes, I think of that was the one he had in the first half it looked like initially it was supposed to go to Lucas, but it went to Brahim. That reverse pass that slipped through the back four. Yeah. He had so much. And he
had that through ball to Rodrygo too, which in the 25th minute sets him on a near breakaway. Rui Silva comes out of his net. And the thing is, I mentioned how tired he looked. In the 96th minute, he has a slide tackle interception deep in our half that was actually really key. And just a subtle thing that no one will remember. That was in the 96th minute when he's on the last bit of energy that he has. Crazy. He's just incredible. Every day that passes, it's beginning to look at the steal of the century.
Yeah. He's far and away blown away everybody's expectations. I know there are a lot of people saying even before he arrived that he is the signing of the summer, but still, even then, he's blown away everyone's expectations. And I think that when you talked about the pass to Rodrygo, though, that reminded me. I thought that was clear as day penalty on Rodrygo in the first half. Aitor Ruibal nipped at him, missed it. He clearly beat him off the dribble. How is that? Am I the only one? I thought that was clear as day.
I don't know. I'd have to look at it again, to be honest. Maybe I'll pull it out before we finish recording here.
And Rodrygo, like you said, Rodrygo he had Aitor Ruibal on skates all day. It was so easy for him. Every single dribble, every single move, insane. 10 completed dribbles in this. 10 completed dribbles.
It's the most he's ever had in a Real Madrid shirt.
That's crazy.
Some of the ones in the second half were ridiculous. I don't know how
he had that one where he. I love this when he does this. He did it. It's the one. Remember the goal he scored against Atletico where he basically turns his whole body without even touching the ball, and then he carved through the whole Atleti defense. He did that same turn today, where he just kind of lets the ball run by him, turns and takes out 3 guys when he does that turn. And it's just, man, it looks so effortless for him. And and that's why I'm always even when he's not scoring or assisting, this is what he can do. That's why I'm such a proponent for him and feel like he's got the quality to be a starting 11 player at Real Madrid and a very, very important player. And I just think he he's showing. I'm so happy with his form right now, and he's really showing his best stuff. Like along with Bellingham, for me, he was the best player on the field.
In my opinion, this is the most confident he's looked ever to me. I know he didn't score today or assist, but I don't know, just his body language, the way he was taking players on, it felt like there was a different.
Yeah, he knew he was gonna.
The last few games have been great from him.
Yeah,
and again, like, I'm not going to sit here and blame him for not scoring or assisting today, because he did what he had to do to break the lines and break Betis' defense, and no other player was. Honestly, I could name maybe 2-3 other players who could have done what he did today from a dribbling perspective, and maybe should have had an assist. There was that Joselu chance, right, in the second half. One of those dribbling sequences lands to Joselu in the box, and Joselu, I think, shoots wide or gets blocked. One of those two, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, before still in the first half, like, I agreed with your sentiment on kind of the first 25, 30 minutes really being, I mean, I felt like we were in total control, really dominant. I felt like you saw Betis really tired. I think they had moments like, I think Lunin came up with that one huge save from his near post. It was kind of like making amends for the goal he gave up the other week. And I think Lunin, by the way, really, I mean, I thought he had 2 or 3 big saves.
Yeah.
Like, looked great. Happy that he got
he
the
saved
start.
0.54 xG according to Sam's Managing Madrid post game piece.
Yeah, I think he'll get the start again. I think he's on a good run right now, and I don't think Carlo, unless like some major blunder happens, I think he'll get the start again.
Well, next game is Union Berlin, meaningless. So maybe I don't know if that changes things for a good one for Kepa to come in and find some rhythm. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't do that. Just give Lunin the continuity. Like, just keep it going. Let him keep gaining this confidence and just playing game in, game out.
I'm with you.
Yeah, especially if you're going to play him in La Liga the following game. Like, just keep it rolling. But yeah, I think you earlier too, you made a point on Ferland Mendy and kind of his basically decoy runs. And I think if you remember back to his days with Zidane, he played in like that left half space quite a bit and underlapped a lot. And so we saw a little bit more of that today. And
even at Lyon, he was attacking a lot.
I remember the scouting report you guys did. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think he doesn't have the point of those runs isn't necessarily for him to get the ball. It's like you said, to create space and just move some players out of the way for Rodrygo to just, instead of having to cook 3 guys, cook 2. And so I think hopefully we see more of that. And I do feel like he's, like you said, this is 5 consecutive matches. He hasn't done that in how long? I do think he's kind of starting to turn a corner a little bit here. I'm not saying he's back to the Mendy we saw in that first season, but I think he's starting to turn a corner a bit.
Well, he had that. I think the one thing that he did, I don't remember what minute it was now, but I think he got some criticism for that fall. I don't know if he got fouled or not. You remember that sequence where he clashes with someone and he falls? He's calling for a foul, and then Betis get a shot in the box. Rudiger clears.
No.
Anyways, that was like the one thing. I think otherwise he was he did well. He also defended Ruibal well. Like anytime Ruibal made those overloads, man, this was like almost a really, really good, solid win. Like when Bellingham scored, I was feeling really good because
I was pumped up.
It was also just the fact that this isn't me being a little bit salty here, but I really don't like Ruibal. This goes back to last season at the Benito Villamarin. Him and Camavinga are running in transition, and then he throws Camavinga to the ground. Remember that?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then after the game, he turned it the other way. He turned himself into a victim. He said he was running and Camavinga blocked him. And I don't know if you saw his post-game comment today.
No.
where one of the in the mix zone, the scrum reporter asked if Bellingham's the best player in the world, and he said Messi's still playing or something like that, or Messi's still active. I'm like, man, come on. Just like, you can't, like, so anyways, when he scored, of all people, he scored. If Isco would have scored, I would have been like, all right, fine.
Yes. The other thing too was, like we talked about, Aitor Ruibal was having a horrendous game. He was getting destroyed.
Yeah,
like he was the most undeserving of the first player on that field to score that goal, especially because it was like a worldly. It was an insane goal, and he was not deserving of that one.
So the blame game on the goal. I think that maybe the first thing to be noted is that the goal is insane. It's an absolutely ridiculous shot from that angle. Perfection, top left corner. Lunin has no chance. I watched it multiple times, and it goes back, and I didn't really realize this during the game, but Ancelotti talked about it after the game. He said Bellingham switches it. That's when the possession is lost.
Yep.
So, I mean, of course, like no one, it's like kind of taboo to point out Bellingham's flaws. But Bellingham switches it, gets intercepted, and Betis come the other way. Fede Valverde is kind of like the closest one to Ruibal, but he can't really. I mean, I understand why he didn't go in, because he has another player. He's marking two players. Another one, if he leaves him open, Ruibal can make a square pass, and he's open in our zone 14. So Fede Valverde is kind of stuck in two worlds. Rodrygo, people have to understand that by design, he is an outlet in transition. So he's not the guy to be tracking. There's like five other Real Madrid players tracking that situation.
Yeah, he's not the guy.
The one I think maybe could have done better was Alaba. I think he could have stepped, because he wasn't marking anyone anyway. He had the wide player was covered by Mendy, and I think Cruz or someone else was central, and maybe Alaba could have stepped. I think that was probably the most logical thing to me. But I don't know. I think people got caught up in the blame game on that one too much.
Yeah, and I it's crazy because I remember, like, as soon as Jude hit that ball and it kind of fell soft, like it landed, I think it was just a little too weak. I remember thinking to myself, man, not the greatest switch, and of course we get punished there. Sure enough, we get punished, and I kind of, in retrospect, looking back at it now, it almost feels like a moment where it was Isco and the diamond type of transition defense, because Jude was actually on the right flank. Obviously, defensively, we're set up most often, like our rest defense and our defensive shape is a 4-4-2 with Jude on the left. And so him on the opposite flank with nobody else was over there, obviously, to cover that space. It hurt us. And so obviously he was trying to look for the weak side switch and take advantage of that, but it just didn't pull off. And because of that, our shape was totally off in transition, and Betis were able to capitalize. And I think, it kind of reminded me of 2016, 2017 Isco, or even 2017, 2018 Isco. How many times did we talk about, because Isco has this free position, he's kind of, it hurts us in transition. But normally, obviously, Ancelotti's tried to rectify that issue this year with switching to a 4-4-2 defensively. But I mean, other than that, like, I think you're right. I think Alaba probably could have stepped there, but it's one of those that probably 9 times out of 10 Ruibal isn't able to hit that shot as perfectly as he does. But he does have, it's fair to criticize and say he has way too much time there. Like, he had way too much time.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I mean, someone's got to close him. It was insane. Like, he had all day to hit that. And he hit it with perfection, to be fair. And again, like, the thing is, like, up after that, and you can check the SofaScore attacking momentum. I mean, after that, it was all Real Betis getting chances. We had a couple half chances if we had to put some good passes together in transition, but we looked too tired at that point, and a couple things happened. So the Isco header that hits the post, there was 2 or 3 moments in this game that, going back to your Isco diamond thing, reminded me of like how efficient Isco was at moving off the ball as a free roamer. Like, 2 or 3 times he ended up in our box undetected because he's making runs from places that just blindside defenders. He had one in the first half, the one that hits the post, and I think he had another one if my memory serves correctly, but I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. And then the last play of the game was actually a really good Lunin save where he tips it over the bar, and there's no time for Betis to take the corner. I don't know. I mean, you look at the players that Ancelotti could have brought on, and again, he doesn't have many options, man, to kind of inject new energy. I mean, we got the Nico Paz cameo, we got Joselu, and we got there wasn't literally there's not really a game changer to bring in off the bench in that situation. I mean, you just brought fresh legs, Ceballos fresh legs, Nico Paz fresh legs, Joselu fresh legs. His hands were a little bit tied in this one. Yeah. The one thing I do I'm just curious to see, I'm jumping all over the place now. That Union Berlin game is so meaningless. And in past years, we've had situations where the 6th game we're guaranteed first place. We play Benzema when he needs rest or whatever. I'm just curious. I want to see what Vinicius Tobias can do at right back. I don't know if I'm asking for something too unrealistic here. He's looked a little bit better with Castilla this season. Athletically, he's very promising. Works really hard. His understanding of the game has started to be a little bit more polished this season. I'm just worth a look. Who cares? If he does terrible, if he does great, I don't know. Just want to see him.
That's a interesting call out. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I think the reason for those games we always want obviously to test out things, play some other guys, and I think the reason why we always end up playing some of our core guys, if you think of the Champions League and the Spanish Super Cup in particular, is there's big money on the line. Every game you win in the Champions League is worth
2.5 million.
Yeah, and then the Super League, Spanish Super League, I think you get I think it's 10 to 15 million if you win it. So yeah, that's why you Carlo Ancelotti has been made aware of that. That's why I think we see stronger lineups than we normally would want in those types of matches. They're meaningless to us, but they're very I would say they're pretty important to the club.
It's a fair point.
And so on Isco, I want to go back to Isco real quick. There were moments in this match where you just see he has he's technical quality. He's just a class above his teammates on Betis. You can just tell he's just that little bit level above. And the way people kind of roll off his body when he has the ball, and despite his diminutive size, people are he's got that center of gravity and he's got that close control where he doesn't lose it. And even some of our obviously Modric, I would think of would duel well with him, and he just ended up fouling Isco. And I think it's been great to see him. I've caught, I would say maybe 3 or 4 of Betis' other matches just to kind of watch Isco, and he's been playing great. It's been fun to see him back to his best, and I think we're all happy for him. I don't think anybody. He always speaks well of the club too. He always speaks well of his time here. He's always he's very reflective and just honest in interviews and stuff, and I appreciate that about him. And I think he always takes the high road and kind of puts the blame on himself. If anything, he never blames managers or anything like that. So I respect that about him.
This season, he's 3rd in La Liga in through balls. He is 3rd in the big 5 leagues in key passes this season. 1st in passes into the penalty area in La Liga. 3rd in shot creating actions. But yeah, a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. He's having a really good season. You're right. Rudiger.
Oh yes, I want to talk about Rudiger.
I thought he was awesome today. I thought he was. I mean, this is just continuation of how good he has been all season. First, every 50-50 loose ball. Like I mentioned that Mendy falling sequence, Rudiger blocks the shot. And then
I remember that now. Yeah.
Gets into position to clear the rebound. And he's like, there was that sequence where he just bullies Abde off the ball. Like he's not even there.
That's what
I
wanted to talk about. That is my favorite moment from this match. He just absolutely manhandled him, showed him who's boss. And like, that is classic Rudiger. And it's not a foul. It's not. He's just coming in way more intense, way stronger. Like, it's just, I love it. He does that type of thing every now and then, like actually pretty often, but I love when he has those moments. Like, it was pure Rudiger.
The only couple things that, like, towards the end of the game, 86th minute, forces a long ball giveaway, picked off, Betis come the other way. Could have just made a simple pass. In the 96th minute, this one kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety. We had a chance to attack, and he makes that off-ball foul on Willian Jose. Unnecessary. And Betis get a free kick, and that was like virtually the last play of the game. We could have broken free. But other than that, I mean, you just see him lifting Isco off the ground?
No, I don't remember that.
So this is in the first half. Isco's receiving the ball with his back to goal, and Rudiger is behind him. And Rudiger just kind of like puts both arms around him and just kind of like lifts him up.
No foul called, right?
I don't think anything was called.
Yeah. He does get away with a lot, I feel like.
He just
is
kind
of like half clean enough that like he can get away with it. But you know what I've realized about this season that, or kind of taking note of with Rudiger, that I didn't expect, especially after his struggles in the first half of last season. Like, he really struggled under pressure and playing out of the back and kind of playing in a back four, out of the back. Like, just I remember specifically a game away at Villarreal where he was awful last season, first half of last season. And this year, I just feel really comfortable with him playing out of the back. I feel like he always makes the right choice for the most part. You mentioned a couple long balls he didn't have that went well tonight, but I think his long ball ability and the big switches he does have been really good this year. And he's had a couple like over the top that have been perfect to Vinicius. He had that beautiful one to Bellingham in preseason. I think it was in Houston where Bellingham scored that chip. Like, he's just, he's been, I think if we go back and look at our, again, going back to a round table, the preseason round table, if we look at our unsung heroes, I think he's going to be high up on the list. And I don't know that anyone put him there.
I think was that before Militao's injury?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we didn't know. Before. I mean, I think he's had some incredible long range passes this year. There's been a few. He had one in Sevilla too, where he puts the ball on a silver plate for Vinicius or Rodrygo. I can't remember which one it was. And it was an incredible pass, like just over the top, perfectly weighted. And if you look up his progressive passing numbers and distribution passes into the final third, they're still not at his Chelsea numbers, but they're much better this year. I don't know what happened last year with him at the beginning. And I guess maybe that's just a testament to like new league, new country.
Yeah.
We have to like factor that in, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked better as the season wore on last year too.
Yeah. And I think particularly for center backs who aren't accustomed to playing the way Real Madrid, like, it's so different than especially a Tuchel Chelsea 3-back system. Like, it's so different. We've seen the interviews from Cannavaro and Pepe and everyone about like, you're playing with 70 yards behind you. Yeah, like, that's not normal at most other clubs. And so it's just completely different, and you have to be able to play out of the back. And so I think he just had to adjust to that. I think we should almost expect that from center backs kind of going forward, is like there's going to be maybe that first season is always a little bit tough.
Well, you remember also what some of the criticisms were of the signing were that he can only play in a back three and he can only play on the left side. Well, right now, he's on the right side of a 4-4-2 and just killing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay, so where do you want to go from here?
Um, I wanted to ask you about Modric because I kind of gave you brief thoughts, but I wanted to get your idea on his performance because I have some thoughts.
Well, it's interesting because he doesn't have too many. I think you mentioned this at the top of the show, right? He's not like, if you look at when I saw him back in the starting lineup today, I thought, okay, so this is maybe more of what we saw earlier in the season. Three midfielders plus Jude, kind of like the diamond, right? But Modric, I mean, what's been happening the last few games is that there's almost a double 10 thing going on. And so today, Modric and Jude were kind of getting in between the lines with Kroos and Fede behind them. And I liked his verticality in this game and played some nice through balls as well. One to Rodrygo early in the first half and had that long distance shot. I think he was just quiet. I don't know if that's the right word, but I guess I liked his verticality, and maybe we suffered defensively a little bit because of his free roaming role. What do you have?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm being too harsh, but I feel like this season in particular, he's looked more of his age than he has since maybe 2018 is the last time I can really remember that. And I don't know, I just felt like there were certain moments where he just looked a step slower and like just wasn't himself. And he still has like obviously silky smooth touches, little deft flicks and kind of juke of his body and stuff like that. But there's also just moments where I'm like, he just seems, I can kind of tell he's the veteran in the squad, and it just doesn't seem as, and I don't know, like he's been very vocal in the past about needing continuity and like wanting to play as many matches as possible because that's what's best for him.
Yeah.
And you saw how frustrated he got when he was substituted out today. I know we've always thought of him as like the guy that won't cause a fuss if he doesn't play, but I actually think I think it's harder. Like, I think what people don't realize is like how much of a ego, and it's a good ego. It's not like a bad ego. It's not like he's kind of walking around the place like, I'm the best player at Real Madrid, but like it's just like this healthy ego that some of the best players in the world have. And then when their identity and their role is changed, it's really hard to accept that. It's really hard to swallow that. Like, even with being 38 years old, like I think it's tough. It's tough. Like no player, you ask any player, no player, some can handle it better than others, but no player wants to be on the bench. And I think when you go from being a superstar and a guy that's starting every single game and like have to be one of the go-to guys, it's tough to swallow this new role. And I think maybe the lack of minutes lately, the on and off injuries, like I just feel like it's been a weird season for Madrid so far.
I think one of the toughest things for pro athletes is when they hit a certain age, and this has been so many examples of this in the two sports I follow, basketball and football. When you hit the age of like the realization when you're not the player you used to be is really hard for those players to accept. Yeah. And it takes a lot to like get them to adapt. But in Modric's case, like when he was subbed off and he kicked the water bottle, I didn't interpret that as like I can't believe I'm being subbed off. I think it was like an overall frustration of this situation. Like, he's not mad at anyone in particular. He's just like, damn, man.
Yeah,
like,
we were tied at that point, right?
So he got subbed off in the 69th minute. Yeah, that's 3 minutes after Ruibal scored. So that's when we're tied. So I think it's a frustration of the game, say the situation and all that. This was interesting because Sam pointed this out in his post-game piece for Managing Madrid that Modric has started 3 games this season, and all 3 times he's been subbed at the 70th minute mark. So it's almost like pre-planned, like you're getting 70 minutes. We can't, have you out there for 90.
I'll be honest, I don't think he's happy about that. Like, I don't think he'd be happy about that.
Well, he clearly isn't. Like,
he's playing 90 for Croatia, no problem. So,
well, earlier in the season, remember when not everyone, we've never had everyone healthy, but we had a lot of people healthy. I think all the midfielders were healthy at one point, and Modric wasn't playing.
Yeah,
or playing little, and he was vocal when he went out to Croatia.
I think there were a couple games where he didn't play at all.
The international break, he was vocal in the Croatia press conferences.
Yeah.
It's not easy for him. And look, I've said this many times. If anyone's allowed to even be a little bit unhappy with anything, it's Luka Modric. He's the greatest, most humble superstar we've ever had, and he's been doing it at an elite level until basically forever. And he's continued to do it, defying all age of physics and aging, biology, whatever it is that it's called.
And I could see him being a guy that come the springtime, even if he's not a starter, just pops up with incredible cameo appearances and sprinkles a little bit of magic, the last bit of magic out.
For sure. And we've actually seen that this season too. There's been bursts of that as well. Okay, so I did want to go through a quick few notes. Let me see. Well, I'm trying to actually figure out what we missed. So, Cruz just walked into his 10 of 11 long balls completed. Usually it's 16 of 17. Fede. We didn't talk about Fede much.
Yeah. Quiet. It was because he had a really quiet game.
Quiet.
I thought he was tired. I just thought he looked tired.
Yeah, and the new role, he has been a little bit quiet because he's a little bit more conservative in his role. I noted this at halftime. Our right side was so non-existent apart from Brahim every now and then because Lucas Vazquez wasn't providing anything. I think something that would have helped is actually if Fede started to drive the ball forward on the right side a little bit. I think we could have used a little bit of that, but it's also risky because then you're committing bodies forward. You need some better coverage. Our defense wasn't great this game.
Well, I think everyone always talks about how much Fede compliments Carvajal, but I think it works both ways. And maybe Carvajal is not getting enough credit for how much he compliments Fede.
Yeah, but his defensive coverage was good in this game. Had some good pressing sequences too. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how him and Cruz function in that double pivot. Very interchangeable. When it's in the build-up phase, it's usually Cruz going deeper. When it's on defense, Fede goes middle, kind of cover the ground. But it's a little bit more conservative.
I think Fede, and maybe not as much in this game, but in this double pivot role in the last however many games, 3 or 4, I think he's proven that he's better in build-up than people give him credit for. In his passing and just overall control under pressure is better than people give him credit for.
Yeah, I'll just bring this up, quickly share my screen really quick. My favorite Twitter account, Mark Statspot. So you can kind of see, even today when he was really quiet, progression via ball carry, Fede, and also progression via pass. Rodrygo just cooking over there, but you can kind of see even in a game like this, how important his ball progression was.
Yeah.
All right, what do we miss?
I don't know. I think we went through everything.
I think we got everything. If there's minor things, they're not headline things. I did, just going back to Rodrygo point for a sec, I forgot to mention this part. So, did you see that we posted that clip referencing your article from last year? Rodrygo versus Kvara? I thought that was kind of timely to bring up because when you looked at the advanced analytics of his per 90 metrics, and you were the one who published that article kind of pointing this out between him and Kvara, if you just extrapolate that and give him more playing time, I think he's an elite player.
Yeah.
I think he's proving that.
Yeah, and those minutes, as talked about in the article, were Rodrygo was primarily on the right wing, while Cavaro got to play on the left wing, his preferred left wing. And if the roles were reversed, I don't think you'd see the same output. And Cavaro is obviously having a much quieter season this year than he did last year. Napoli overall they haven't been able to really get over the loss of Spalletti, and so yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
So I did want to say this as we're nearing the end of the podcast here. It's been crazy over on Managing Madrid. Like, it's been out of control the last few days. So going back to Tuesday we had a podcast with Lucas. Wednesday we had a 3-hour live call for our members. Thursday we had mailbag. On Friday we had the Big Picture podcast with you and Ruben for our members. Real Deal podcast. We had Real Madrid Las Blancas podcast. So that's 3 in one day. And then we have this post-game show. In the meantime, I also published all my interviews I did with the Real Madrid fans outside the Bernabeu. That's on my YouTube channel. Lucas interviewed Michael Owen. That's on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like a couple episodes of churros in between there as well. So we're putting ourselves on the line here. This is like Fede Valverde style, like 3 lungs. We're going hard. So I hope you guys enjoy the content, and make sure you're checking out all the written stuff on the website as well. Did you want to also just tell everyone what the Real Deal not Real Deal, Big Picture podcast for our members, our patrons?
Yeah, so Ruben and I got back together this past Friday and just discussed. We just like to zoom out and talk, like the podcast title, Big Picture, and just kind of themes we're seeing in the season, reflect on some of predictions from maybe the summer or earlier, or thoughts we've had, and see if those still hold true or what's changed. And this last episode, I think we had quite a long discussion on Ancelotti and just our thoughts on him and the third season thus far, and given the context of everything, including like how we felt in the summer and the squad building, the injuries, everything, what we think of kind of what's happened thus far in the season.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of people were asking for the return of you and Ruben, so I'm glad that you guys churned one out this week. If you guys like what you hear, if you like the content, you want to support it, not only just support it, really, like, more importantly, be a part of something. Be a part of this huge Real Madrid family that's been built now. The Discord channel is flying. Our members get a ton of bonus content. The weekly live calls are getting better and better. You guys can chat with us, unmute your mic, turn on your camera, have conversations with us face to face. It's all over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. You can get all the content there. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the memberships tab. You can do that instead if Patreon is not a viable thing in your country. Same amount of content. And we did want to give a quick shout out to our patrons, Matt, before we wrap it up here. So if you pledge $10 or more per month, you get a specific shout out on the podcast. So you also got guaranteed responses to your questions and access to everything. So shout out to these $10 plus patrons as follows, and bear with me. As you guys know, since I've gotten braces, speaking has been very difficult. So if I stumble in this list, I apologize in advance. Shout out to these $10 plus patrons as follows: Daniel Smith, Fabian Moreno, KT, Primo, Ramtin Mahrur, Bella Chow, Adam Dorsey, Adar Zalukovic, Azaz Hussein, Alex Steiberg, Alexandria McCaskill, Ananya Kumar, Andres Silvestre, Anthony Tharp, Armando L, Armand Gashi, Armash, Arnab Mukherjee, Brandon Stevens, Brendan Powers, Carlos Fuentes, Krishna Costa, Connor McMorrow, Daniel Williams, Deadpool Lover, Eloy Enriquez, S.A. Davisito, Frederick Sundros, Frederick Antakiro, Gary Kohut, Graham Gerard, Howard Moore, Ian Marley, Jacob P., Jason Fitz, John Fernandez, Jose Cruz, Jose Osorio, Kevin Rivera, Khalfan Alkabi, Leon Stavronakis, Logan Stahl, Magnus Lext, Martin Ridman, Matthew Atkins, Marin Myrtle, Michael Zinberg, MJ Diego, Ndaba Halabangana, Nelson Mazariego, Nick Ribeiro, Nicholas Moeller, Oscar Barrera, Patrick Diafati, Paulo Fierro, Peter P, Phoenix, Rishi D, Sai Mohan Sasikumar, Samar Z, Samuli Justin, Santos Solorzano, Sergio Arispe, Sheikh Hatiri, Somanshu Singh, Sujai Wani, Sushank Damala, Tahmid Kalam, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Wamik Jamal, Wasim Haddad, Will Sousa, Willie Reed, and Brandon Alvarez. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Matt, thank you, man. It's great having you on the show as always.
Yeah, thanks, Kip.
And we will chat soon. Peace out.